There is just no sugarcoating it, folks. The New York Mets blew it this weekend. They went from beating the best team in baseball in the Dodgers to losing to the worst team in baseball in the Nationals, and they dropped two key games in their division race to the Atlanta Braves. We're going to talk about all of it on this frustrating edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, I'm generally the Mets optimist, the Mets apologist, and I certainly can make that argument. I can get back onto my usual lane here and say, well, this is a Mets team that hasn't dropped a lot of series this season. And, they haven't lost to bad teams much either. And so, yeah, you lose one to the Nationals. You've dominated them all year. It's no big deal. But I'm not going to do that today because this is the type of race where you're going to have to win. And I give them a free pass for not sweeping the Nationals. Okay. I'm fine with that. You can't lose 2 or 3. You just can't. And this is maybe that last free pass they might have because, right now as I'm recording this, the Braves technically have not finished off the Marlins, but they're winning 4-0. They're about to complete a sweep, and they just picked up 2 games. So now you got a game lead on the Atlanta Braves in this division. There's no reason to parse through every single detail of each game. The Mets played sloppy baseball the last 2 days, and they lost 7-1 in each contest. Now, we could talk about Scherzer exiting early. We could talk about Carlos Carrasco coming off the IL. Those were some reasons why the Mets lost, and we will discuss those in the next segment. I'm going to talk about the pitching in a bit here. The lineup went up against Patrick Corbin, okay? And look, I watched the game. Corbin did throw the ball well, and that's something that it's a caveat you always have to say. These are still professionals on the other side. I think Francisco Lindor said it earlier this season, the cliche of the guys in the other locker room drive fancy cars too. And Patrick Corbin, I'm sure, has a nice car. He makes a lot of money, and it's a little less surprising, even as bad as he's been arguably the worst starting pitcher in baseball. He can still find it for a night, and he did. He did throw the ball well. He went 7 innings. He allowed just 3 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. He did. But it's still Patrick Corbin. You're still the New York Mets, who are supposed to be the first place team in the National League East and the second best team in the National League, if not in baseball. You can't go an entire game against Patrick Corbin and the Nationals bullpen where Erasmo Ramirez is closing the game. Granted, it was a 7-1 lead after they scored 5 runs in the 9th inning. But, that game was close. They had their opportunities. And the New York Mets just completely dropped the ball. And yes, we can, again, we'll talk to pitching in the next segment. There was pitchers to blame, okay, in this series. But I have to look at the lineup first because the pitching has been carrying this team. And the lineup has showed some warts recently. And again, I do preface all of it by saying this is the best regular season I've watched arguably in my lifetime. So I hate ripping into this Mets team because I still am able to look at the entire season and to understand that it's an unprecedented Braves team too, to have 2 teams this good in this division. It's like the Dodgers and the Giants last year. And the Giants, ultimately, as great as they were in the regular season, they didn't make it far in the playoffs, and the Dodgers didn't either. So you just want to get to the dance, and the Mets will get to the dance, and that's maybe the most important thing out of all of it. And the Braves have shown us that you can do a lot, and the Nationals have shown it as well when you kind of take a league by storm a little bit and go on a run the playoffs. So anything can happen once we get into October. But it's still a matter of we laid out the road. And even though we could just say, hey, the Mets are going to make the playoffs, it's all gravy. We'll see. It'd be better if they won the division, but they went through what felt like the hard part when they beat the Dodgers in that series. It felt like they had kind of got themselves right where they wanted to be, 3-game lead, and you're in the cake part of your schedule. And you go up against Patrick Corbin and Eric Fetty, and they combined to pitch 13 innings and allowed 2 runs against the New York Mets. By pitching that well, Corbin lowered his ERA to 6.28, Fetty to 5.08. As well as you can say they throw the baseball, you got to be better as an offense against a bad team. You just do. You just do. And here the Mets are, and they're coughing up games to the Braves. And like I said, this is an isolated incident. If we look at the general scope of this season, they have found a way to win so many series. And if they had pulled this one out on Sunday, I let that Corbin performance go by without even blinking or batting an eye or even mentioning it on the show, other than just talking about what happened. But you just lost the series. You went from beating the Dodgers to winning the first game of this series and scoring 7 runs. And David Peterson looked pretty decent. The bullpen held up. You had Givens give you 5 outs out of the pen, and Joel Rodriguez gives you an inning, and Lugo, and everything's good. And you're just swimming along. And then you hit a skid. And then you fall apart a bit. And then you lose 2 straight games. And that's how fickle baseball can be. Because you know what? The Mets can go out and they can sweep the Pirates, and the Braves can get swept by the Oakland Athletics of all teams. We can say there's no chance that happens, and it happens. And suddenly you look up and the Mets division lead can get wide again. And actually, the Mets do have the benefit of playing an extra game in the Braves this week, so they can get a half game up on them just by winning out. But it's tough to sweep teams. You just can't lose to these bad teams. And I think down the stretch, if the Mets can, let's just say they beat the Pirates, they beat the Marlins, they beat the Cubs, they beat the Pirates, they beat the Brewers. If they just win every single series, I imagine they'll go into that series against the Atlanta Braves at the end of the month, and they'll be within striking distance either way. And when I say within striking distance, I refer to being able to win that series and come out with a lead. And if that's the case, and then you have a division lead at least going into the final series of the season at home against the Nationals, where if you handle business against that team that just beat you, you can make it to the playoffs as the NL East winners, then I think you're happy, because that Braves team's good. I'm not selling them short. And it's not typical that you're in a division race where you have gone out and you've done your part all season and you're 35 games over 500 and the team is a game and a half behind you. That's not typical. Look around baseball, okay? It's not happening. The Cardinals, they're in first place in their division. The second place team is 12 games over. You look at the Dodgers, they're rolling through the NL West. The next team is 14 games over. Okay, you got the Braves here who are sitting here at 28 games over 500. That just 28. No, that's horrible math, Ryan. 22. 32? 32. Jeez. And they wonder why I'm a writer. Oh, man. I leave all that stuff in. I'm not going to edit and make myself look smarter, but still, the point stands. These are 2 really great teams going to head, but you can't give them an edge against a team like the Nat. You just can't give them that break. And this was the one blip they can have, because from this point out, they got to be on point to close off this division. That's my rant. I'm going to calm down a little bit here. I'm going to read this word from our sponsor. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about the pitching concerns from this weekend, which is, just Scherzer's getting pulled and Carrasco coming back and where the rotation is moving forward. We got some rehab stuff to discuss from guys coming back and Louis Guillorme. So we're gonna go through all those notes from this series and what's the kind of the state of the roster. Then we'll close out a show with the preview of the upcoming series against the Pirates, which now the Mets probably should sweep, but bare minimum have to win. Before we get to that, though, as you get for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your businesses fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. There you can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire with simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now, the scariest moment in what turned out to be a frightening series, I would say, against the Washington Nationals, what happened on Saturday. Max Scherzer exits after 5 innings pitched. He had only thrown 67 on the day, and we see him grab Jeremy Hefner, and the trainer falls behind them. They go into the tunnel, which would cause mass panic and hysteria, as you would expect, as it should among Mets fans. Luckily, as of now, nothing to be too concerned about. But there's a caveat to that. Same injury as last time, left side, but not an injury. Max Scherzer felt like if he went back out and tried to force it, there could have been further injury. So what did he do? He pulled himself, and it was precautionary. He should be fine. They're very hopeful he's going to make his next start, but that's still a thing to think about, right? And that's where the Mets depth does help them a bunch because they have David Peterson. And so that can get you through the regular season. Now the Carrasco's back, and you even have, some other potential options if you had to go to them, like Trevor Williams pitching out of the rotation again, although he certainly didn't look great on Sunday here. I mean, he gave up a couple, I guess overall, not too bad. When he goes 4 1/3, he just gives up, 2 runs, but it wasn't as great against a bad Nationals team. You'd have liked to see him just kind of hold them there after what Carrasco did to put the Mets in an early 5-run hole there. But regardless, I'm not worried about the starter depth on this team. I am concerned about just getting DeGrom and Scherzer to the finish line and getting them healthy and having them effective in October. But I wouldn't be too concerned about the rotation. Now, again, you talk about this series and the pitching in it, and with Carrasco coming back, you can give him a little bit of a pass on this game. Now, it's the Nationals. It's a lineup where it's Lane Thomas and Luis Garcia that were killing the Mets. And I mean, looking up and down this lineup, and the casual fan, and even me who works in baseball, doesn't even recognize some of these names. Like, I had no idea who Joey Meneses was until this weekend. No clue. The guys like Luke Voigt, didn't necessarily kill them too much. But look, it is what it is. I'm ready to flush this national series. Like I said, I mean, the pitching was bad. The hitting was bad. At times, the defense wasn't great. We saw Jeff McNeil, who's been so good all year, make a couple of errors. It just wasn't the Mets weekend. What you have to look forward to now is the light schedule helping the Mets, obviously. And we're going to talk about the Pirates series in the next segment here. But there is a couple of key guys that could come back soon that could just give you the last little jolt you need. And to me, Louis Guillorme is the most important one. The Mets need him. His defense, his at-bats from the left side. Eduardo Escobar, to his credit, in the game today, got a hit from the left side. And with more playing time, he's getting more confident. But even with the extra layer of confidence in the home runs he's hit, they've primarily still come from the right side, and they just had a stretch where they faced a ton of left-handed pitching. So to get Guillorme back to complete that platoon again, and just the defensive flexibility it gives the Mets, that's going to be massive. He was supposed to begin a rehab assignment on Sunday. The Mets decided to hold off, just basically because minor league baseball has Mondays off. So why send him to Binghamton for 48 hours when they could just begin the rehab on Tuesday when he could only get into one game. So he, took some work on the field today. He's ready to begin a rehab assignment. The Mets are going on a road trip here where they're going to face the Pirates. They're going to face the Marlins. Then they come home to face the Cubs on September 12th. That could be, I think, a target date potentially for Guillorme to get back. That's going to be big for the Mets to have him for that final stretch of the season because what he brings to you defensively, the at-bats he gives you, the way he helps grind down pitchers, he's just so important to this team in the littlest ways that really help move the needle. So having him back into the lineup, I think that's going to help this team. And the other big one, and you're wondering about here, is Tylor Megill. Tylor Megill made his first rehab assignment. This is in Binghamton. Goes out, pitches an inning of relief, touches 97 with the fastball, and strikes out the side. Good start for Tylor Megill. Question now is, when does he pitch again? How many days rest does he need between relief appearances? Is he going to build up a little bit? Is he going to be a 3-inning weapon for the New York Mets where they're going to build him up to 45, 50 pitches maybe? And you can look at him as a multi-inning, bridge to your back end. So if you're pitching right, and let's just say he can come back in a couple of weeks and you're playing whatever, the Brewers, the Athletics, whatever series it is, and Chris Bassett gets you through 5, but has a high pitch count. Can Tylor Megill come in and get you the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th? Is that the role they want him in? Or do they want him to maybe be able to pitch, if not on back-to-back nights, maybe 2 out of every 3 nights? And can he be a late inning reliever for the Mets? Or is all of that putting too much on him? And he's just a much better version of a guy like Adonis Medina that you just sent down after he gave up 5 runs. I don't know. I don't know what the path is going to be with a Tylor Megill, but it's certainly promising to get him back. I think that the more you can get away from some of these 4A guys that have been pitching on the Mets, the more you can be in better shape. Now Trevor May ended up on the IL this weekend. We believe that's probably COVID related. Bryce Montes de Aca came up. We'll see how much we see of him. He's an interesting reliever because he throws really hard. He can touch 102, but he didn't necessarily look the most polished in his one appearance. I just don't think that counting on someone to make their debut and play a key role down the stretch, not to mention, I'm not mistaken, I'm 95% sure, I'm more like 99% sure, he wasn't on the 40, which means he's not eligible for the postseason roster. So I know a lot could have been made from that, but I wouldn't get too crazy as it relates to what this rookie could do. But the bottom line here is the Mets bullpen is showing us some signs with specific relievers like Seth Lugo, the way he's been pitching lately. Seeing Adam Ottavino continue to be the 8th inning guy, and hopefully you get back Megill and Smith to kind of ease some of those worries. But the bottom line here is beat bad baseball teams. I mean, we're talking about a lot of stuff here, and really what it boils down to, when you play a bad baseball team, beat that bad baseball team. They did not do that this weekend. Can they do that in Pittsburgh this week? I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, a word from our sponsors. The New York Mets will play the Pittsburgh Pirates for a 3-game set to kick off this week. And they're a bad baseball team. They're 49-84 in the season. They've won 2 of their last 10 games. They're not good, but the Nationals are 47-87. Granted, they've actually won 6 of their last 10 after taking 2 or 3 from the Mets this weekend, but any team can beat you. You can't just count these as wins like we want to. The Mets got to go out and they got to prove something here. And they have all the right ingredients to do it. They got Taijuan Walker going in game 1 against Mitch Keller. I think Taijuan would like to go out. And I don't know if the last time he was in Pittsburgh, last time I saw Taijuan Walker in Pittsburgh, which was when he threw the ball away on a little dribbler hit down the third base line. And he watched his 3 runs, ran in as he argued with the umpire. I don't know if that was the last time he was in Pittsburgh, but it certainly left a real mark in my brain. So I hope that Taijuan can make it up to the Mets here and have a better performance in this one. He's going against Mitch Keller with a 4.43 ERA this year, which is a pretty solid pitcher for this Pirates ball club, but I would not be too concerned about that. That is a day game, though. So interesting the lack of time between here for the Mets to have to finish this game on Sunday while that was a day game, go right into a day game on Monday. That's a little bit surprising. Tuesday is Jacob deGrom, though. deGrom against Bryce Wilson. deGrom has once again assumed the role of a stopper. You hope he doesn't have to stop a skid. You hope the Mets win on Monday, but you feel confident he can against a pitcher in Wilson who's got a 6.12 ERA right now. And then you got Chris Bassett going in the final game of this series against Johan Oviedo, who was pitching out of the bullpen for a lot of this season, has made a couple of starts, but has not given them a ton of length. I mean, his last start, he went 3 innings. He started another point earlier this season where he gave him 5 innings. So he's pitched primarily out of the bullpen, has pitched well, granted, with the 2.86 ERA, but not necessarily an accomplished starting pitcher. Generally, at times, those are the guys that can give the Mets fits just based on our memory as Mets fans. We're like, oh, wow, Johan Oviedo, that's a guy that's not proven, so he must dominate the Mets, right? We'll see what happens, though. I can't go into this series and not have confidence in the New York Mets to at least win it because they're the Mets, and this year the Mets have won more series than they've lost, and they've prevented every time we doubt them. They've had an answer, and I expect them to have another one. But you look at this week, and it does get concerning to me because this Braves team continues to play well. The Mets have this 3-game set in Pittsburgh, and you hope they win that. But then they go to Miami, and that's just the ultimate trap series to me. The Marlins just got swept by the Braves, and look, I just don't like the Mets playing the Marlins in September. I think I've said it before. Look, I have the confidence in my convictions when it comes to the New York Mets. I still believe they win this division. I do. I'm also a Mets fan. I've also seen it all, and I'll turn 27 this month, September 14th. In my near 27 years now, and I guess 25 years of being at least a somewhat conscious observer as a Mets fan, when I grew up on Mike Piazza and Edgardo Alfonso and Robin Ventura and those teams of the late 90s, you just never feel quite comfortable, do you? You just don't, man. So, bottom line here, these are teams the Mets should beat, right? It's the Pirates, it's the Marlins, it's the Cubs, it's the Pirates. It's a series against the Brewers, it's a series against the Athletics, it's one more against the Marlins, a short 1 or 2 game set, and then you play the Braves. And like I already said on this show, get me to that Braves series within a game of Atlanta, one way or the other, and let it be decided then. 2 best teams of the division going head to head. Personally, I love it a lot more. The Mets handled business. This Braves team came back to earth. They have to go through a West Coast swing, and they have to play the Phillies twice. You hope the Phillies can actually step up and beat up the Braves a little bit, and the Mets can cruise into that series with a healthy lead in this division. But it's September. There's a lot of baseball left to be played. And you know what, though? That's the fun of it, right? We are watching impactful games in September between a team that you hate and a New York Mets team you love. And that's what it's all about. That's the type of conclusion you want to your summer. And we're just hoping this story has a happy ending. As always, though, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein. Ryan, follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. After your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to stay up today with everything going on in Major League Baseball. And if you haven't checked it out, I was on the show last week, so you can get a little more of me there. You can find Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.